Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I am so excited to be here today. We have a very special, very special guest, and it's just going to be an incredible interview. I actually happen to think this is a bookworm's dream and a bucket list all in one. This is a pleasure. You will not be disappointed. I have a very special guest today. Hi. So type in the comments where you're coming from. Where are you joining us from? I'm on the East Coast in the United States. Put in your town and let's see. We have for our guest to join us. Let's just wait a little bit. Hello. Hi, Tega.
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. How's it going? Everyone is joining in, and I'm so excited.
Okay. You ready?
Yes, we are ready.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, there she is. Welcome. So I was just telling everyone what a bookworm's dream this is and a bucket list all in one. It is such a blessing to have you on my page today. I'm so excited to share. So I'm going to start by saying welcome, everyone. Please post in the comments where you're joining from. Let us know where you are. If you don't know me, I am Dea. I'm a Christian artist, singer, songwriter. But today I'm not going to be singing to you. I'm going to be talking to this incredible woman of God. So let's not delay any longer. Please welcome Michelle McKinney Hammond. Yay!
Hi.
This is so exciting. So before I go on to ask you a few questions, I wanted to tell everyone a little bit about who you are. Because personally, to me, you are the epitome of feminine power. You are grace.
Thank you.
You are grace and wisdom all in one. And I wanted to actually read what's on the back of your book so everyone can know a little bit about you. So it says here that you are the founder of Michelle McKinney Hammond Ministries, that you speak at churches, conferences, businesses, and institutions internationally, that you are the author of over 40 books with over 2.5 million copies sold worldwide. It says that you are a former Emmy Award-winning television co-host of a show called Aspiring Women. You are an actress, a singer, a writer, a producer with 7 CDs to your credit. Also the visionary and a leader of Relevance, which is a music ministry based in Ghana, West Africa. And this is not all. Everyone, you have to get this incredible book. In the last page of this book, there is actually a front and back page, okay, 2 full pages of credit. It is the most incredible woman who wears many hats. And I actually, before I ask my own questions, I want to tell you something. My 12-year-old son was asking me, what was I doing today and who you were. So when I told him who you were, he said, can you ask her what is her favorite of all of those accolades and roles? What is her favorite one? So this is your first question from a 12-year-old. He says, what is her favorite role?
Who is this profound little man?
My younger son, I know. So ask her if she has a favorite. So do you have a favorite role?
Do I have a favorite role? No, because it's different seasons. You know, I love talking into the lives of people. Of course, you and I, we both know what music does. I mean, if you told me I couldn't sing, I would just be like, you know, what are you talking about? Because even when I'm not singing, I'm singing in my head, you know. I mean, music just resonates throughout my being 24/7. So for me, worship is really important, and probably my number one. Then after that, I want to talk and then, you know, and teach and all of that. But my heart is really a heart that is inclined to worship. And from that, everything else flows out. Because I really believe, Dea, that, you know, our lifestyle is worship, not just the song we sing. The song just sets the mood for the life.
Okay. So let me start with the title of your book, formerly known as Power of Femininity. This book called The Power of Being a Woman, Embracing the Triumph of the Feminine Spirit, right? So back 50 years 40 years, even 30 years ago, we never talked about that. No one talked about the power of the feminine. And I wanted to know, why did you decide to write this book? And if there was anyone that inspired you in particular, and why the relaunch of this book?
Well, I think that at the time when I wrote it, I had been on the road a lot with women's conferences, and so many women, based on their questions to me at my book table, because I would sit out there so I could meet the people I was talking to, and sign books and just see who people were, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The questions that they would ask me, I said, wow, women are really struggling in this area. And I have to admit that it's never been like top of mind for me. My mother's West Indian. And I don't know, there's just that cultural feminine thing, you know, they're just who they are. And so I never really thought about it as to role playing, who was more powerful or any of that. You know, in my home, daddy was king, but my mother was powerful. So I never saw it as she was diminished because of the role that my father played as the leader of the house. So these were things that got me to thinking, and that's when I wrote The Power of Femininity, because I felt that so many women were struggling, and felt that they had to be men, in fact, in order to get things done. And it was creating quite a dissonance.
Okay.
Why did I relaunch it? I relaunched it because this was called, besides us battling with the pandemic, it was called the Year of the Woman. And I thought, that's very interesting. And as we see, lots of women have been rising up in government. The United States now has a woman vice president. You know, we've got women running countries, nations. You know, we've got the Prime Minister of Germany and New Zealand and all these people that are doing great stuff, you know. And I think actually defying the odds because of the stereotypes that our people tend to place on us. So it is really essential that in this time, when women are moving to the forefront, as we are, rising as we are, that we keep our womanhood and our femininity in perspective so that we wield the power that is intrinsically ours well. Because, you know, you can use power and you can abuse power. And I think that when we abuse it, it breaks the back of society. But when we use it well, we literally empower communities, homes, cities, and countries to be their best.
Great. And I love that. You know, reading your book, I got a sense of a perfect balance between femininity and the powerful, right? So what would you characterize as the most important superpower in a woman?
I would say our influence there.
Love
You
it.
know,
Love
people holler and scream a lot about, well, you know, why did God set it up that the woman was supposed to submit to the man? And, you know, what's this whole submission thing? And I'm always like thrown by that. It's like, what's the big deal? I mean, ultimately, he says we should all submit one to the other. So there's not really one specific person that's supposed to be submitting. Everybody is supposed to be submitting. Whatever the greater part of that other person is that makes a contribution to the work that's being done and the project that needs to be accomplished, we yield to that. And that makes sense, like a team. You know, basketball team, the forward isn't trying to be the guard, and the guard isn't trying to be the forward. Everybody stays in their lane. They know what their role is. They submit one to the other. When one person has the ball and they throw it to the other person, that person's then empowered to take it down. And then they know when to give it up. Because haven't you ever gotten mad in a game when the guy refused to give up the ball and you know that he should have thrown it? And because he didn't throw it, they lost because he got blocked. And if he had only passed it to the guy across the room who wasn't being blocked, they could have scored a point. That's kind of what happens in relationships, you know, when we refuse to yield, submit, or pass the ball, so to speak, so that we win corporately together. So I would say that influence is the greatest power that a woman has, and it's actually greater than authority. So while we're quibbling over submission, you know, influence is greater than authority.
You know, what's interesting too, you have a quote in your book that says, a woman who knows who she is a powerful tribute to femininity. And I love that because, you know, when you talk about submission, one of the things that I learned from your book, and I have been very paying attention to this very closely, is the fact that a lot of people are confused about submission. They think it's being less worthy or being controlled, when in fact submission is, they're talking about the submission to God's love, which in itself is the type of servitude that is an act of worship. So in fact, if you look at how God loved us, and you learn how to love, knowing your place and where you stand as a role, as your role as a woman, you would be such an asset, such a compliment to that relationship. I think that, you know, it's so important to understand this definition of submission. And I love it. In chapter 7, I'm going to ask you to read something to us, because you have this incredible poem on chapter 7 called The Strength of Vulnerability. Would you grace us with this poem on chapter 7? Would you read it to us? I want everyone to hear. Not that I want to give away everything in this book. Everyone, you have to get a copy of this book, The Power of Being a Woman.
Hold on a second. Let me find it. While I'm finding it, I'll just interject here too about submission. That submission, there's nothing passive about submission. Submission is an aggressive decision to put yourself in the position to be blessed. Wow. And when we see it that way, then we see that it works for us and not against us. You know, when we submit to God, we get blessed. And when we submit to rules in the land, they keep us from colliding. They keep us from hurting ourselves. It creates order in our world, and it creates the pathway for us to get where we want to go and accomplish what we want to accomplish. Okay, so the poem says, she called him Lord and crowned him with her graciousness. Following beside, shielded by his protective arms, she basked in his shadow, all the while being his sun, her rays bathing him in assurances of greatness and esteem. Whispering wisdoms in his ear, he did not reject, as she dressed him in success before his peers. And as her love surrounded his heart, warding off the enemy, he did battle for her, covering that most precious to him, for she was his glory, his treasure, his pearl of great price. He stooped even lower, not willing to lose sight of her eyes that said so much without saying anything at all. Yet they gave him peace in the middle of a storm. They made him see reason when his own vision was clouded with rage. They lit the way, illuminating his path with sound direction, all the while still calling him Lord. The pressure of gentle hands pushed him onward toward the fulfillment of his destiny, soothing tired shoulders, stroking away worry, silencing the child, awakening the man within as only she could, still calling him Lord. She held his world steady in her hands. She filled his empty spaces. She repaired the breaches in his spirit and made him whole again. She was his sanctuary, his food, his light, his queen, and still she called him Lord. You see, only a confident woman can actually really submit and call a man Lord. Confident in a couple of different areas. Confident in who she is and what she brings to his world that's valuable, but also who she is and who she belongs to, which is God, Abba Father, who ultimately guards her life and covers her. When you look at the story of Sarah, who Abraham said, say you're my sister, which was not really a lie, kind of a half lie, because she was afraid. He was afraid that the Pharaoh would take her. And so that's what they said. God protected Sarah and made the whole household break out in hemorrhoids till Pharaoh gave her back. So really, it's not so much about trusting in the power of the man per se, but trusting in the power of God, who is ultimately your cover and protector.
Okay, I love that. You know, it's interesting. In chapter 11, you actually have a part that you talk about for everything there is a season. And in the beginning of this book, you know, I was very aware that there was an order. You talk about the order between the season and all of the reasons and the purpose in the life of women. Now, you speak about the women of the Bible, their struggles, their sacrifices, as well as their triumphs. And you really bring to light single, married, moms, career women, mothers, daughters, and sisters But I wanted to ask you to address the single women, because I find that in the time today, I hear a lot of women who are single and are looking to have that, they're looking for that man, for the partner, as if it was a means of giving them power and a sense of worth. And I want you to address this, because I think it's such an important, the way you describe it is beautifully. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, singles, you know, our power has to be realized first as singles, number one. The man does not add power, really, in the sense of if the button is pushed, what's in you is what comes out. So he can't add what God's already put into you. So realizing how powerful we are, even as single women, the contributions that we make to other men around us, our brothers, our friends, co-workers, we still have a major part to play in influencing people around us to do the right thing, to make the right choices, to move forward and progress in a way that God has designed us to progress. Even sewing into the lives of children, you know, the biological clock is a real issue, but there are children that are available to be loved in our world right now. So it doesn't have to be a science project where you've got to see a mini you all the time. Sometimes in the economy of God, he's put you in the place to be able to minister to several women, several children, because you're free to do so. So I think that it really starts with single women understanding that the hole in their heart is not a person-sized hole, it's a purpose-sized hole. And as they get in purpose, that leads them, it puts them on the path to run into that person who's maybe walking in that same lane, so that how can two walk together except they be agreed? Then that puts you more in line to meet someone that's in line with your values and your beliefs, and has things in common with you that you can share, that can grow from a friendship to courtship.
You know, I loved in this book, I mean, I love a lot of things about this book, but in particular is this role that you have to inspire so many. You know, it's a very inclusive book. It talks about all kinds of, you're every woman in this book. You talk about it's very inclusive. And I think the beauty of it is something that you actually just said about, you know, you may not have your children from your womb, but you could be the mother to many. I was adopted, and my mother was a woman that was a mother to so many people. You yourself, as a single woman by choice, have even ministered to wives in this book, which is incredible. It's an incredible gift. You know, I honestly wondered if I would love to see this book, if this is something that just was dropped in my spirit, wondered if this book would be an incredible addition to the curriculum in colleges for young women and men, because what I see is a very healthy spiritual platform here. I see an incredible spiritual movement, and I say movement very carefully, because this isn't about politics. This is about a connection with the truth and a perspective that even if you don't believe in Christianism, even if you're not a believer, you still would get so much out of this book, and because of the way it's written. It is, I saw myself in so many things, but also didn't see myself in a lot of things, and started to feel a little panicky. And then I thought, but wait, I still have a chance to grow. And that's what the great book does. It empowers you to want to do better. In the end of your chapters, you have these incredible prayers, which always bring me to tears. But every time I read them, I thought, I have a chance right now to start over. I have a chance to do better. I felt empowered and so encouraged, and also gave myself so much mercy when I read about the seasons and the reasons in the life of a woman, because you put it in such a way that you can see their point of view, you can see the perspective. You may find yourself in it or not, but there is such a space for feeling, giving yourself the grace as a woman, because that's also very powerful. I wanted to ask you about the fact that you've written so many books, right? And I also know, I've read some of your incredible novels. Did this book, The Power of Being a Woman, influence any of the characters in the novels that you've written, or vice versa? The characters in your book influence you the way you wrote this book? Is there a relationship between them?
Actually, no, because the novels were written a long time after this book was written. Okay. When this book was written, I had just started doing a tour called the Women of Virtue Tour.
Okay.
I had been put on the cover of Today's Christian Woman magazine, And through that avenue, women, you know, churches, conferences all over the States and in London, and everyone started inviting me to come and speak. And I literally was overwhelmed because, first of all, I never saw myself as a speaker. And then to be thrust into this role, and then end up speaking to arenas of women, thousands of women at a time. And, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but I would be at my book table and these women would be in line waiting for me to sign their books. Okay. And they would stop and tell me the most incredible stories. And I thought to myself, I never realized how beautiful women were. And I never realized how open they are to hearing and receiving counsel. There was a deep desire for them to really be the best that they could be. And when I realized the sincerity of that, the needs that they had to be affirmed as mothers, because sometimes it felt like a thankless job where they wondered if they were doing it right, or giving them permission to be authentic and transparent in their friendships with one another and learn to trust again. Perhaps they've been betrayed or hurt by a sister or a sister friend. Watching them struggle with how to get their husbands to do certain things, or even just how to be happy with their spouses, you know, which as a single woman's like, wow, you know, all those single girls are wanting to get married, and here all these married people's like, marriage is a fortified city. You know, the married people want to get out and the single people want to get in. You know, so it's it was very interesting. I was overwhelmed by the needs, the different needs, because I wasn't just in a single space. And I felt that I had to address it. For me, all of my books are like one long conversation that I'm having with my audience. And I am so blessed that most people who buy my books buy most of my books. I mean, they become faithful readers. So we get to go on the journey together. I'm still growing. I'm still unfolding. I'm still getting new, fresh revelations about things. But you know, the beauty of it, when I started going through The Power of Being a Woman, because they said, well, do you want to change anything? And I read it and I was like, you know, it's the word, and the word doesn't change. It's still as relevant right now as it was 10 years ago, because it is what it is. You know, I mean, we can make up excuses for why we shift and our mores change. But the bottom line is that God remains the same. He's wired us a specific way. That does not change, regardless of what things the world induces on us to change our mindset about stuff. Our wiring, our DNA creates a tension between what the world is saying and what God has said. And when we realize that and we return back to our original authentic design, that is when we experience joy and peace and fulfillment. Other than that, it becomes a struggle.
Wow. So would you say that men in general are more to support one another, or women? Because I find that women, I mean, we as women are so powerful with our nurturing nature, right? We are nurturers by nature, but somewhere in the world, the way it is today, there has been more of some women tend to trash other women or not be as supportive, but there are other groups that get the point that together we are stronger. But do you find, generally speaking, that men tend to be more supportive, and why?
Well, you know, I think that men look at different things. Women, most of our competition has to do with what we want to acquire. Okay. And so that's usually either a relationship or an accomplishment. And if we're not full of God esteem ourselves, full of God confidence, Godfidence, as my girlfriend Marshawn Evans would say, then we tend to belittle others to make ourselves feel good about us. And we don't realize that's what we're doing, but that is in the essence of what's happening. Because when we are affirmed and validated and have a great sense of self, celebrating who God created us to be, we're able to freely celebrate others.
I love that. And also, you know, I often think about how there is almost like a necessity to compare, the power of a man and the power of a woman. And in your book, you speak beautifully about how there is authority and there is influence. And the women are influencers. That is where our power lies, in knowing ourselves. We have the capability, the capacity, because of our nurturing nature, to actually influence others in a way that perhaps even strengthen authority. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, we have to understand the difference. Authority is the essence of overseeing. Okay. God is our ultimate authority. Everyone doesn't obey God. So when we get to wrangling about who's in government, I'm always like, what's up with that? People don't even obey God. How do you think they're going to obey, like the law that a man made up? I mean, really? But influence is a different thing. As I talk about politics, I always say it's not about legislation. It's about heart condition. Okay. Heart condition is what causes us to do whatever we do. Okay. Adam's heart was after Eve. And in the moment that he ate of the fruit, he loved Eve more than he loved God. That was the bottom line. What do we love the most is what we choose. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Okay? So when we talk about influence is not manipulation. There's a difference. Manipulation is when you take the power away from someone else to choose. Influence liberates them and empowers them to do what you're encouraging them to do. So there's a big difference when it comes to influence. And influence is much more powerful than authority because it's about heart condition, whereas authority is more in line with the law. And we know that the law kills, but the spirit gives life. So influence is the spirit and authority is the law.
Wow. So profound. I can't say enough how this perspective is a much needed perspective. What you offer in your book is a point of reference. And I think many people sometimes don't have a place to start. This is why I think I see this book and I think young people saw this before they got into the workplace, before they got into relationships, when they're in college, they're ready to go into the world. But if you went into the world, and not just women, but men, because men also need to understand what it means, what feminine power is, in order to embrace it, in order to honor it, right? I once heard this beautiful quote that said, it took a minute for me to grasp, but by Marianne Williamson, and she said, "Love until feels like love to the other person," right? And this book does that. It's like if you understand the power that we have ourselves, as well as how other people view us, it would be so different, because you'll be able to really understand the gift. And the same goes to men. If we understand the role of men, we can also embrace their power, and it'll be such a much better way to live in relationships, in the workplace, in friendships, in sisterhood, in everything. It is really an incredible book. On page, to go back a little bit about submission, on page 138, you have this quote that you say, "Submission is a command to everyone, men and women alike. Until we see submission as God's instruction to become vulnerable enough to receive, we will fail to recognize the submission is an invitation to be blessed." This, I don't know why, but this makes me emotional. This little thing here made me emotional, because one of the things that I love about learning about how to be blessed, it took me years to understand that sometimes we're blessed, but we don't see it. But the only way to grasp the blessing is to feel as a worthy recipient. We have to actually accept and receive that. And what better way than if you understand who you are, if you embrace who you are, you will be so much more open to these blessings.
Yes.
It's like guys, I'm going to plug the book again. You have to buy it. You have to go. Tell us how they can get your book, how they can find it.
They can log on to my website at michellehammond.com, or they can go straight to POBW, which are the initials of The Power of Being a Woman, POBW.michellehammond.com. And when you go to that page, actually everything is there for you. You can order the book, either an ebook or a print copy. You can send the proof of your purchase to me, and you'll get a free devotional up to December 14th. And when you do that, you also get access to the book club. So I'm going to be hosting the book club. I will be on discussing it chapter by chapter with all the people online. And so I'm really looking forward to that, because I want to hear how it's touched you and how it's empowering you to be who you were created to be.
Many people that I've spoken to have had heard of your book, and they had this copy, which is the original copy. They don't have it anymore, because I think I bought the last 2 copies of it. You want to look for this beautiful, this new upgraded, and it's like a makeover cover. Absolutely beautiful. It's so classy. I love the way it is, the tones. You know, I'm a very visual person. I'm a bookworm, and like I said earlier, this is a bookworm's dream and a bucket list all in one. It's incredible. And for those of you who joined us, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy. I see so many people joining. This is like incredible. And I wanted to let you know that if you do buy the book and join the book club with Michelle McKinney Hammond, you are in for a treat, because how often do you get to be in a book club with the author? It is such an incredible gift. So many nuggets again in this book. And I wanted to see, I know that we are looking at the time because Michelle has other interviews and she's a very busy woman. And I thank you again for blessing me with this opportunity. But on chapter 3, you have a beautiful, there are so many beautiful poems, but I had a few favorites. This one is called Taking the Lead. Would you read that for us?
Sure. And Dea, I want to thank you, because you're always so affirming and so supportive of me. And I really, really love and appreciate you. We've grown together over the last few months. And so thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. But I enjoy you so much. And I've watched you blossom and flourish. So I hope you know that your growth is showing.
Oh, thank you. Honored and blessed. Thank you.
It says, wisdom spread her skirts and sat beneath the tree, tucking prudence and discretion beneath her feet. She flung insight around her shoulders to ward off the chill of foolishness and waited for those who were willing to listen to come. The invitation had been voiced that all who chose the way of life should come. Come and drink of what she served. She waited, not insisting, not vaunting herself on unwelcome ears, for she knew that time would tell the fulfillment of her words. And so she waited, basking in the light she had been given, allowing it to keep her secure in all she knew. And when she spoke, her words were not wasted. They fell on the fertile soil of thirsty hearts that came craving refreshment. Diamonds were given to only those who recognized their value. For wisdom did not waste the gifts of God on the undiscerning, saving them from stumbling on self-imposed offenses. For wisdom knew that timing was everything.
Wow. It's beautiful. There's so many beautiful moments in this book. And, you know, the questions at the end of each chapter, too, the interesting part, I had to rethink a lot. I was in awe of how many questions. It almost went, I couldn't answer a lot of them at first. And I had to go back and think about my point of origin, think about my points of reference. This is why it's so important to read this book, everyone, because it'll offer you a different perspective. It made me think in a different way. I had to actually shift my thinking and say, how do I answer this? And then, of course, with the references of the women of the Bible, I was able to go back and see what their story was like, what was their sacrifice, and how did they triumph, you know, understanding everybody has struggles. We have struggles as women because we have so many roles. You as yourself wearing so many hats. You know, some of us have been through all of those seasons, not only as wives or mothers, now single moms, or now we have a job. We went back to career where before we were home. We have to constantly adjust to those roles. And in the end, to find the bigger and greater purpose of it all, for us who are Christian women to serve God, you know, for his glory. But what a great, incredible guide. I am so thankful. And I know that you have other interviews today. I wondered, should we take a question from someone? I saw so many.
Sure, why not?
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This is such a blessing. I'm trying to open to see if I can, I don't know how to view them. Let me see if I can go back and see if anyone has a question. Okay, so, wow. We have some incredible comments. Maria says, what a powerful talk. Thank you, ladies. This was so wonderful and so inspiring. We have so beautiful, the poetry, run, don't walk. You need to get this book, share it with your sisters and brothers or children. I think this is from Offie, actually, I think it is. That's an incredible comment and so true. Run and get this book. It is correct. You know, and you won't read it once, okay? You are going to go back and refer to it as a guide. It is a guide to positive affirmations. It is where you see yourself. And when you don't see yourself, remember that you always have the opportunity to start or evolve. You know, we can make those choices and avoid to making the mistake of repetition and simply make a decision to evolve. You know, does anyone have a question? Let's see if we can sit. Does the old copy buyers get to join your book club? Can you answer that question?
Well, it's actually my promotion for selling the book again. So I need the proof of purchase for access to the book club.
And where do they email their proof of purchase?
Pardon me?
Where do they email the proof of purchase when they purchase the book? What is the email?
If they go to the POBW page, POBW.michellehammond.com, there literally is a link there that connects you to the right mailbox to send in your proof of purchase.
Okay. So let me see if there are any more. There are a lot of great comments, and a lot of women actually know of you. And I have actually a beautiful friend by the name of Rose who lives in Nigeria. And when I told her that I was going to have this opportunity to do this interview, she sent me this voice message on WhatsApp that is the cutest thing ever. It was like a mixture of joy, like a childlike joy that because she's been following you for so many. Now, let me tell you, this is a young lady, 27 years old. She is beautiful.
Wow.
And the inspiration, and this is what I'm saying, if young women could get a glimpse of what you offer, I mean, again, epitome of feminine power. You are such a beautiful example to so many women. Could you tell us a little bit? I'm going to just ask you this one last thing as a tribute to your mom, because you've spoke about your mom so candidly and what an example she was. And I know that mother's influence. My mother personally was a great influencer, a woman ahead of her time who was a pioneer in her field of dentistry for pediatric dentistry and made such an impact on the lives of so many people. Can you tell us a little bit about your mom?
Well, my mom was a feminine woman. She was gorgeous. She still is, but I'm just thinking back to my early impressions of her. She actually looked like a caramel version of Sophia Loren. Now, I lived in Barbados with my grandmother for several years, and then my mother married an American, and she came to get me. And I have to tell you, Dea, I was just in a state of awe. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life when she got off that plane. And there was just a grace about her. But she was such an organized person. She worked a 9-to-5, and she was an amazing cook. She did her hair, my hair. She sewed our clothes. She baked bread. She did pies and cakes. And she had a system for running her house. And it was flawless. So our floors were always shiny. The house was always spotless. People would come over and actually say, my God, does any dust accumulate in this house, And on Saturdays, people were lined up because they could smell her rolls down the street, when she was baking. But she had a whole system for running her house. She was a woman of order, and everything was just so organized, And so there were rituals in our home for getting things done so that everyone was on point. She did all her cooking on Saturdays for the whole week because she worked. And on the kitchen door, ability of setting the table, warming up the dish of the day and getting the salad or whatever was supposed to happen. And we promptly sat down to eat at 5:30 every day. Saturday was cooking day. Sunday was getting your hair done. in the evenings to, you know, just amuse herself. She would sew and make us beautiful clothing. And so I just remembered all of that. And looking back, I go, my gosh, I don't know how she did all that she did, but she had a system.
Wow.
You know, and she didn't pressure herself to do more or less. She had a system. And I always said she was the Proverbs 31 woman, because she understood the seasons of her life and the purpose of each season. And she didn't stress herself to be more than she was supposed to be in that season. And I think that that's a little silent war that a lot of women fight today. There's so many pressure to be every woman, to be all things to all men all the time. And it is literally impossible. So it's really important for us to understand, what is this season of my life for? What's the purpose of this season? Let me apply myself to that. And you know what? Can I have everything? Yes, I can, but not all at the same time. Wow. That too is a seasonal quest. And so as we apply ourselves to mastering this season, it organically makes the next season easier, because you've been set up for it and equipped for it by applying yourself fully in this season. So that's wisdom. You know, it keeps you from getting old before your time, and being also able to fully enjoy where you are. Because one of my favorite lines in the book, The Shack, was when Jesus asked Mac, do you think you spend more time in the past, the present, or the future? And most of us don't spend most of our time in the present. We're either stressing over something from the past or worried about something in the future. And carpe diem, seize the day. Fully employ this day. Jesus said there'd be enough trouble for tomorrow, so inhabit this. Perhaps that's why his name is I Am, because God is a present God. He's very present in the day at hand.
Does culture influence the way women perceive their role in the community or in their homes?
Most definitely. Okay. Most definitely. Culture and tradition has a lot to do with it. You know, our nature, our nurture becomes our nature. So the things that we were taught, the things that we observe on a daily basis, leave deep impressions in our mind. They create grooves that sometimes we can't get out of. They're so deeply entrenched, you know. And that's why the word says that our mind has to be renewed in order for our life to be transformed. So literally, sometimes we need to change our way of thinking, which is another reason I wrote the book, because I think that society says a lot of things about women that aren't true. Your family dynamic says a lot of things about women that aren't true. Peer pressure and even the media and movies say things about women that aren't true. So we've got to get back to what God's divine design is for who he created us to be. That is the place where we flow organically and accomplish the things that we want to accomplish with less effort than when we're trying to live up to a world standard or a cultural standard or a traditional standard or even peer pressure standards.
Wow. Well, you know what? I mean, you are the type of woman we could talk for hours and days, because there is so much you have to offer. Thank you so much for giving me this privilege and this honor to interview you. Again, a bookworm dream. I am on cloud nine. Everyone, you need to get this book. And like Offie says, run and get it. Don't wait. This is going to bless you. And I'm going to let you go and go about your busy day. And again, thank you for this blessing. I love you. God bless your ministry and everyone who you touch with your words and your wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I love you back, girl.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.